Imagine for a moment, a prison. This is not a place of cold stone walls, iron bars, or menacing guards. Instead, its confines are constructed from the softest velvet, its walls adorned with every conceivable delight, and its wardens are a constant, intoxicating stream of pleasure. The inmates within this unique facility have no desire to escape, for they are too busy, too entertained, too utterly consumed by their own gratification to even recognize the bars that surround them. They are content in their servitude, willingly trading their freedom for an endless supply of fun and instant satisfaction. This is not some far-fetched dystopian fantasy, it is a disquieting reality that is slowly, almost imperceptibly, taking shape around us in the fabric of our modern lives. The cage is golden, the trap is comfortable, and we are its willing occupants. This peculiar prison operates on a principle that is both simple and profoundly insidious. Control is not achieved through brute force or overt oppression but through a gentle, almost benevolent application of pleasure. Consider the scene, so familiar it has become a modern ritual. A person, let's call her Mara, lies in the soft comfort of her bed. The room is dark, save for the cool, artificial light emanating from a small screen clutched tightly in her hand. Her face is illuminated by the shifting, vibrant colors as her thumb moves with a practiced, almost robotic rhythm, scrolling through an endless digital feed. Her eyes are wide, yet they seem distant, as if gazing at something far beyond the glowing rectangle before her, yet seeing nothing at all. She is an inmate in her own private cell, a cell she has willingly entered. The power of this system lies in its subtlety, its masterful ability to disguise control as choice, and servitude as freedom. Mara is not being forced to scroll, she chooses to. She is not being commanded to stay in bed, she finds it comfortable. The screen offers a continuous supply of lighthearted videos, stunning images, and fleeting social connections that provide a steady drip of dopamine, a small but constant reward that keeps her engaged. This is the velvet glove of modern control. It doesn't need to threaten or punish because it has discovered a far more effective method: to anesthetize us with an endless cycle of entertainment, distraction, and superficial gratification, ensuring we remain placid, compliant, and blissfully unaware of our own confinement. This is the central paradox of our age. We are surrounded by unprecedented levels of comfort and convenience, yet we may be less free than ever before. The chains that bind us are not forged from iron but from our own desires, meticulously cultivated and amplified by a society that has perfected the art of selling happiness. Mara smiles vacantly at something on her phone, a fleeting moment of amusement, before her thumb instinctively swipes to another application, a dazzling online marketplace filled with alluring products. Her finger hovers for a moment over an image, a flicker of manufactured desire in her eyes before she taps Add to Cart. The transaction is seamless, the gratification immediate. The golden trap has just tightened its grip, and she feels nothing but a momentary sense of pleasure. This unsettling vision of a pleasure drug society was laid bare with chilling accuracy nearly a century ago. The English writer and philosopher Aldous Huxley, in his prophetic 1932 novel Brave New World, painted a detailed portrait of a future where humanity had been pacified not by pain, but by pleasure. He foresaw a world where the traditional tools of tyranny, chains, whips, and political persecution, had become obsolete and inefficient. Why rule through fear when you can rule through fun? Huxley possessed a prescient insight that few of his contemporaries could fully grasp, that an endless supply of entertainment and instant gratification could be a far more powerful and enduring weapon of control than any form of physical coercion. He knew that a population utterly consumed by amusement would cease to ask difficult questions. In the world Huxley imagined, suffering had been all but eradicated through genetic engineering, psychological conditioning, and a powerful happiness-inducing drug called soma. Yet, in this paradise of pleasure, nobody truly lived a meaningful life. The profound secret to this society's stability lay in the complete anesthetization of the human spirit. When people are perpetually occupied by entertainment, their minds lose the crucial capacity for deep, critical thought. Entertainment becomes more than just a pastime. It morphs into a pervasive smokescreen, a shimmering, intoxicating fog that meticulously conceals the harsher, more complex edges of reality. The citizens of the world state were happy, but their happiness was shallow, artificial, and ultimately, a form of living death. They were too distracted to fight, too content to protest, and most disturbingly, too sedated to truly think. Huxley's work was not merely a piece of speculative fiction, it was a profound warning. He understood that pain, suffering, and injustice have a unique ability to spark revolt. When people are made to suffer, they often coalesce, they organize, they demand change, and they rise up against their oppressors. Pleasure, however, achieves the precise opposite effect. It is a force of separation, meticulously isolating each individual within their own personalized bubble of entertainment. The binge-watching of a television series, the immersive escape into a video game, the relentless pursuit of social validation online, all these activities function like a powerful silent narcotic, keeping the mind in a state of tranquil slumber and preventing any sense of collective consciousness or shared struggle from taking root. This is the insidious and brilliant tale of how the pursuit of pleasure was perfected into the ultimate method of social and political control. It is the story of how our most natural human desires were hijacked and weaponized against us. We find ourselves today, ensnared within the gilded confines of the very golden trap that Aldous Huxley so chillingly described all those decades ago. The prison is not a physical place but a state of mind, and its walls are built not by a distant tyrant, but by our own relentless craving for comfort and ease. We are the architects of our own cage, and we hold the key, yet we have become too distracted to even look for the lock. Aldous Huxley's revelation about the nature of power was terrifying in its elegant simplicity. He saw with unnerving clarity that the future of control would not belong to the tyrants who ruled with an iron fist, but to those who could master the art of distraction. Rulers no longer needed to wield the crude instruments of force to command their populations, for they had discovered something far more subtle and infinitely more effective: the constant, pervasive, and deeply seductive promise of pleasure. This new form of power did not need to break the will of the people because it operated by gently and persistently bypassing it altogether. It offered a shortcut to satisfaction, a life free from the friction of difficulty, and in doing so, it created a populace that was too comfortable to care about its own subjugation. The velvet glove was far more potent than the mailed fist. This principle is not confined to the pages of a dystopian novel, it echoes in the rhythms of our daily lives. Look around and you will see its evidence everywhere. Observe the crowds moving through a city street, each individual enveloped in their own private soundscape, headphones securely in place, their gaze locked on the small, bright screens of their phones. They are oblivious to the world around them, navigating their physical environment while their conscious minds are adrift in a digital stream of content. Billboards flash with vibrant, alluring advertisements, promising happiness in the form of a new car, a fizzy drink, or a luxury vacation. The entire environment is engineered to capture our attention and direct it towards simple, consumable pleasures, ensuring our minds are always occupied, always stimulated, and never left to wander into more challenging territory. In Brave New World, Huxley painted a vivid and disturbing picture of a society where suffering and hardship had been meticulously engineered out of existence. Yet in this sanitized world, no one genuinely lived. The profound secret to this society's tranquil stability lay in the complete and total anesthetization of the senses and the soul. The citizens were conditioned from birth to seek pleasure and avoid discomfort at all costs. They were provided with an endless array of mindless entertainments, sensory films, and the calming drug soma to ensure that no moment of unmedicated reality could ever intrude upon their carefully managed happiness. This eradication of pain, however, came at a terrible price: the loss of art, science, truth, and the very essence of what it means to be human. The chilling parallel to our own time is undeniable. We may not have the state-sanctioned conditioning of Huxley's world state, but we are nonetheless immersed in a culture that relentlessly promotes the avoidance of difficulty. From the promise of so-called life hacks that simplify every task to the endless scroll of social media that fills every empty moment, we are encouraged to take the path of least resistance. We are seduced by the simplicity of a world where every question has an instant answer, every desire can be satisfied with a click, and every moment of boredom can be banished with a swipe. This seduction is powerful because it appeals to a fundamental human instinct, but in yielding to it, we risk trading our capacity for deep, meaningful experience for a lifetime of shallow, effortless gratification. When we are perpetually occupied by an endless stream of entertainment, our minds gradually lose the capacity for deep and sustained thought. It is a subtle erosion, a slow and almost imperceptible dulling of our cognitive faculties. Entertainment, in this context, transforms from a harmless diversion into a pervasive and powerful smokescreen, meticulously designed to conceal the harsher, more complicated, and often uncomfortable edges of reality. It becomes a buffer between ourselves and the world, a colorful and noisy distraction that prevents us from having to confront difficult truths about our society, our relationships, and even ourselves. The more we consume, the thicker the smoke becomes until we can no longer see the world or our place in it with any real clarity. We float in a pleasant haze, content and blissfully unaware of what is being hidden from our view. Consider the modern rituals of consumption. Mara sits at her sleek kitchen counter, the soft glow of a tablet illuminating her face as she scrolls through an online catalog. The website is a masterpiece of digital seduction, filled with beautifully photographed products that promise to enhance her life, to make her happier, more stylish, more complete. Each item is a small, self-contained promise of pleasure. This act of browsing is not merely a practical search for something she needs. It is a form of entertainment in itself. It is a way to pass the time, to soothe a vague sense of unease, to fill a moment that might otherwise be empty. The endless scroll is a tranquilizer, a gentle hum of activity that keeps the mind occupied and prevents more difficult thoughts or feelings from surfacing. The effects of this constant mental occupation are profound. The binge-watching of entire seasons of a television series in a single weekend, the hours spent lost within the immersive and fantastical worlds of video games, the relentless pursuit of social gatherings and superficial interactions, all of these can function like a powerful silent drug. They keep the mind in a state of tranquil slumber, a state of passive reception rather than active engagement. We become consumers of narratives rather than authors of our own. The brain, like any muscle, requires exercise to stay strong. When it is constantly fed a diet of easy, pre-packaged stimuli, its ability to grapple with complexity, to think critically, and to generate original ideas begins to atrophy. This is not to say that entertainment is inherently bad. A good film, a compelling book, or a fun evening with friends can enrich our lives in countless ways. The danger arises when these activities cease to be a seasoning for life and become the main course. The smokescreen becomes a problem when we start to prefer it to the reality it conceals. When the digital world feels more real and more appealing than the physical one, when we turn to entertainment not for enrichment but for escape, we have crossed a critical threshold. We have begun to choose the comfort of the illusion over the challenge of reality, and in doing so, we have taken a voluntary step into the golden trap. There's a unique pleasure in losing yourself in a crowd, whether at a concert, a stadium, or in the endless scroll of the digital world. The crowd dissolves individual responsibility, offering a rush of belonging and shared excitement. It's an escape from anxiety, a distraction from introspection, and a tool for both celebration and control. Nightclubs, social media, even family dinners lost to screens, all are modern rituals of collective anesthesia. We're together, yet isolated, each absorbed in our own digital crowd. This constant immersion keeps us excited but distracted, filling every quiet moment with noise. The result? We rarely pause to ask ourselves the hard questions about happiness, purpose, or justice. Our worth becomes measured by likes and shares, our lives performed for an invisible audience. The more we chase the crowd's approval, the further we drift from our authentic selves. In the end, the narcotic of the crowd drowns out our inner voice, leaving us strangers to ourselves. Pain unites, pleasure divides. That's the diabolical genius Huxley exposed. Shared suffering forges solidarity and sparks change, but pleasure atomizes us, each lost in our own curated world. The architecture of modern pleasure is built for the individual, my playlist, my feed, my cart. We're each given a golden cell, overflowing with delights, so comfortable we never think to leave. Why seek connection when every desire is instantly met? This isolation is the system's foundation. Divided, we're easy to manage. Scandals and crises fade into background noise, drowned out by endless entertainment. We build our own walls brick by brick with every private pleasure. The most effective prison is the one we don't see, and the strongest chains are those we forge ourselves. In this world we're free, except from our own isolation. The tragedy of modern control is that we choose it, no force required. We line up for the digital fix, not because we're coerced, but because it feels good and easy. The system aligns its goals with our desires, offering comfort and distraction in place of challenge. It doesn't look like a prison, it feels like a sanctuary. Pleasure becomes a voluntary cage, its bars woven from our own wants. We're trapped not by fear, but by love of comfort. Take Mara. Basking in the glow of an online purchase, her freedom is an illusion, her satisfaction fleeting. The hard path of self-reflection is lonely. The easy path of distraction is crowded and bright. The genius of the system is making the cell more appealing than the world outside. We trade depth and connection for comfort, forgetting what it means to be fully human. Huxley saw it. Endless artificial happiness is a kind of living death. In a world of constant gratification, we stop growing, questioning, and truly living. Society becomes a factory, not of goods, but of fake happiness. We're processed from individuals seeking meaning into passive consumers addicted to stimulation. Algorithms and ads keep us wanting, buying, and just happy enough to ignore the emptiness. The factory's genius is making us believe we're free when we're complicit in our own manipulation. It whispers that fulfillment is just one more click away. Every environment is optimized to keep us craving, never satisfied. The cycle is endless: awareness, desire, acquisition, then back to wanting. The factory thrives on our dissatisfaction, keeping us on the conveyor belt of synthetic joy. The factory's first step is engineering desire, not meeting needs but inventing them. Ads don't sell products, they sell lifestyles, emotions, and the illusion of a better self. We're bombarded with images of perfection, taught to equate possessions with happiness. This creates a constant sense of lack, a void only the next purchase can fill. But the happiness is fleeting, satisfaction fades, and new cravings arise. The system is designed for this, a treadmill of desire, never reaching true contentment. Each fix is temporary, each joy synthetic. The goal isn't to make us happy, but to keep us believing happiness is for sale. As long as we chase that illusion, we remain loyal customers on the production line. The cycle continues, always reaching, never arriving. The modern marketplace, a key department in the factory of fake happiness, presents us with a dazzling and often overwhelming illusion of choice. We walk into a supermarket and are confronted with dozens of brands of cereal. We browse online and can select from thousands of different styles of shoes. We open a streaming service and are presented with a seemingly infinite library of films and television shows. This abundance feels like freedom. It feels empowering to have so many options, to be able to select the one thing that perfectly matches our unique preferences. We believe that we are the masters of our consumption, carefully curating our lives from a vast menu of possibilities. This feeling of being in control is one of the factory's most successful and deceptive products. In reality, this endless proliferation of choice often serves to paralyze rather than liberate. The sheer volume of options can induce a state of low-grade anxiety, a fear of making the wrong decision, of missing out on a better alternative. More importantly, the differences between the choices are often trivial and superficial. We spend our precious mental energy debating between products that are, in essence, nearly identical, differing only in their packaging and the specific emotional promise they make in their marketing. This focus on minor, insignificant decisions distracts us from asking bigger, more important questions. We are so busy choosing the brand of our toothpaste that we have no time to consider the health of our society. The illusion of choice keeps us occupied with the trivial, so we don't notice our lack of agency in matters of real consequence. Furthermore, our choices are not as free as we believe them to be. They are powerfully shaped by the very factory system that presents them. Algorithms track our every click, purchase, and like, building a detailed psychological profile that allows for hyper-personalized marketing. The choices we are presented with are increasingly pre-filtered and tailored to our predicted desires. We are shown what the system thinks we want to see, creating a feedback loop that reinforces our existing tastes and gently steers us towards predictable patterns of consumption. We think we are discovering new things, but we are often just navigating a carefully constructed maze, with every path designed to lead back to the company store. Our sense of individuality is flattered, while our behavior becomes more and more standardized. This creates a dependency that is both psychological and economic. We become dependent on the system to help us navigate the overwhelming sea of options it has created. We rely on reviews, recommendations, and top 10 lists to make our decisions for us. We also become dependent on the constant novelty that the system provides. The thrill of the new, the excitement of the next release or the latest model, becomes a primary source of stimulation. Mara, arriving home with her shopping bags, experiences a fleeting sense of accomplishment. She has successfully navigated the choices, made her selections, and brought home her rewards. But the satisfaction is shallow, and the feeling of freedom is an illusion. She was never truly free. She was just a well-managed consumer, playing her part perfectly on the factory floor. One of the most profound and honestly unsettling experiences within the factory of fake happiness is the feeling of emptiness that so often accompanies arrival. After weeks of wanting a new gadget, after seeing it in advertisements and reading glowing reviews, the day finally comes when you acquire it. There's this initial surge of excitement and pleasure as you unbox it and use it for the first time. The manufactured desire has been fulfilled, but then, something strange happens. That intense feeling of satisfaction begins to fade, often much more quickly than you might have anticipated. The object that was once the focus of so much longing now just sits there, a mere thing, stripped of the magical aura that marketing had bestowed upon it. The promised transformation has not occurred. You are still you, and the fundamental conditions of your life remain unchanged. This is, in a way, the hollow core of consumerism. The happiness it promises is always located in the future, in the act of acquisition, not in the state of possession. The pleasure is in the wanting, not the having. Once an object is yours, the desire that was projected onto it must find a new home. This is why, almost immediately after a significant purchase, our minds can begin to wander to the next thing. The brief satisfaction of arrival gives way to a familiar, low-level restlessness. The joy was not in the destination, but in the journey of pursuit. The factory knows this well. Its success depends entirely on this cycle of fleeting satisfaction followed by renewed desire. It sells us the thrill of the chase over and over again. This dynamic creates a profound sense of anticlimax in our lives. We are conditioned to live in a state of constant anticipation, always looking forward to the next purchase, the next vacation, the next experience that will finally deliver the lasting happiness we seek. Yet, each time we arrive at one of these milestones, we find that it fails to live up to the fantasy we had constructed around it. The vacation is stressful, the new clothes don't change how we feel about ourselves, the new car becomes just a mode of transportation. This repeated experience of disappointment can lead to a sense of cynicism and disillusionment, a feeling that nothing can ever truly satisfy us. But instead of questioning the system itself, we are conditioned to simply blame our last choice and redouble our efforts in pursuit of the next one. The factory of fake happiness is therefore also a factory of perpetual disappointment. It sets us up for a fall, time and time again. It teaches us to place our hopes for fulfillment in external things, a strategy that is, honestly, doomed to fail. True, lasting contentment can never be outsourced or purchased, it must be cultivated from within. But the factory works tirelessly to make us forget this ancient truth. It wants us to believe that the emptiness we feel after arriving is a sign that we simply haven't bought the right thing yet. It keeps us focused on the horizon, chasing an endless series of mirages, so that we never stop to look inside and discover the wellspring of joy that has been there all along. Of course, it must be said that not every experience that brings us pleasure is inherently detrimental or part of this manipulative system. Enjoying a delicious meal, watching an occasional movie, or buying something that you genuinely need and will use for a long time are natural and healthy parts of life. These are intermittent joys, moments of pleasure that add color and texture to our existence without defining it. The true danger emerges when these activities cease to be incidental pleasures and instead become a constant, reflexive escape from reality. The problem is not the pleasure itself, but the dependency on it as a tool to avoid discomfort, boredom, or introspection. It is the difference between enjoying a glass of wine with dinner and needing a bottle just to get through the evening. The critical turning point occurs when we can no longer bear to be alone with our own thoughts. It is the moment when silence feels threatening, when an empty space in our schedule induces panic. It is the incessant craving for some external distraction to fill the void, to silence the nagging questions and anxieties that bubble up from the depths of our consciousness. This is the moment when pleasure has metastasized from a simple joy into a psychological prison. The phone becomes a lifeline, the television a sedative, the shopping cart a therapist. We are no longer choosing pleasure. We are desperately seeking it as a way to flee from ourselves, to escape the difficult but necessary work of being a conscious, reflective human being. This constant state of escape prevents any possibility of genuine personal growth. Growth, by its very nature, often requires us to endure periods of difficulty and discomfort. It requires us to face our fears, acknowledge our shortcomings, and grapple with complex emotions. When we use pleasure as a perpetual anesthetic, we bypass these crucial experiences. We remain emotionally and psychologically stuck, endlessly circling the same familiar territory because we are too afraid to venture into the unknown lands of our own inner world. We trade the potential for profound transformation for the guaranteed, immediate, but ultimately hollow comfort of another distraction. The prison is so effective because its walls are padded with our favorite forms of entertainment. Ultimately, this reliance on pleasure as an escape mechanism reveals a deep-seated fear of life itself. Life in its fullness is a tapestry woven with threads of both joy and sorrow, success and failure, certainty and doubt. To be fully alive is to experience this entire spectrum. By relentlessly pursuing only the pleasurable aspects, we are effectively choosing to live only half a life. We are opting for a flattened, two-dimensional existence, devoid of the depth, richness, and meaning that can only be found by embracing the whole of the human condition. The factory of fake happiness offers us a safe, predictable, and sterile world, but in accepting its offer, we risk losing the very thing that makes life worth living. In an environment saturated with easy, artificial pleasures, a strange and worrying transformation occurs within us. Our emotions, the very palette with which we paint our experience of life, become strikingly and unnervingly shallow. We are rarely, if ever, compelled to grapple with genuine difficulties, to navigate the turbulent waters of profound loss, or to summon the courage required to face real adversity. Our emotional landscape, once a terrain of towering peaks and deep valleys, is slowly flattened into a monotonous, unremarkable plain. It's akin to a muscle that, when left unused and unchallenged, gradually loses its strength and vitality. The capacity for deep feeling doesn't just disappear, it atrophies from a lack of vigorous, meaningful exercise. When we exclusively pursue superficial pleasures and reflexively flee from any hint of discomfort, we begin to lose our connection to the more profound and transformative human emotions. The resilience that is forged in hardship, the empathy that is born from witnessing suffering, the unwavering courage that comes from facing our fears, these essential qualities are given no room to grow. Even the capacity for true transformative love, which requires vulnerability, sacrifice, and the navigation of complex emotional terrain, becomes diminished. We become connoisseurs of mild amusement and fleeting satisfaction, but we are strangers to the powerful, life-altering currents of deep emotional experience that give human existence its richness and meaning. This emotional flattening is not just a personal tragedy, it is a key component of the control system. A person who feels deeply is a person who cares deeply. They are moved by injustice, angered by cruelty, and inspired to act in service of a better world. A person whose emotional life is shallow, however, is far less likely to be troubled by such things. The world's problems become abstract concepts rather than visceral realities. It is difficult to feel compassion for the suffering of others when your own emotional register has been tuned down to a narrow band of mild contentment and minor irritation. The atrophy of the heart creates a populace that is emotionally insulated, and therefore politically inert and easy to manage. Ultimately, we become strangers to ourselves. We lose the ability to understand our own inner workings because we have systematically avoided any situation that would require us to look within. Our emotional life becomes a foreign country we have never visited. We know how to distract ourselves, how to entertain ourselves, and how to consume our way to a temporary feeling of well-being, but we have forgotten how to simply feel. We have traded the vibrant, chaotic, and sometimes painful symphony of a full emotional life for the predictable, monotonous, and ultimately empty drone of constant low-level pleasure. The heart has not been broken, it has been sedated into a quiet, dreamless sleep. This pervasive emotional superficiality has a critical and highly useful side effect for the system of control. It renders us utterly and completely predictable. When our emotional range is limited, our responses to life's events become standardized and, well, rote. Our reactions become simple, programmable reflexes rather than nuanced, considered choices. If we feel a pang of sadness, the conditioned response is not to investigate its source, but to seek out more pleasure. To eat a huge dessert, to buy something new, or just to lose ourselves in a funny video. If we feel a moment of boredom, the immediate instinct is to find more amusement, to scroll through a feed, or to switch on a game. Our behavior becomes a simple, binary algorithm: avoid pain, seek pleasure. The system, having meticulously studied and even conditioned these predictable patterns, can then control us with effortless precision. It knows exactly which buttons to push to elicit a desired response. Marketers know that an image of social success will trigger a feeling of inadequacy, which can then be solved by purchasing their product. Content creators know that a video with a shocking headline will trigger a predictable click, driven by a simple, unexamined curiosity. Political strategists know that invoking fear and outrage can bypass rational thought and generate a predictable tribalistic reaction. We believe we are making our own choices, but we are often just reacting along well-worn neural pathways that the system knows how to exploit with surgical accuracy. This predictability turns us into ideal consumers. A conscious, emotionally complex individual is a difficult target for advertising. Their desires are their own, born from their unique values and experiences. They might question whether they truly need a product or consider the ethical implications of their purchase. The emotionally flattened, predictable consumer, however, is a dream come true. Their desires are not their own, they are the manufactured cravings implanted by the system itself. They do not question their impulses, they simply act on them. They are the perfect, frictionless cogs in the great machine of consumption, reliably performing their function of wanting and buying, keeping the wheels of the factory turning. The ultimate danger of this predictability is that it strips us of our agency, our very status as free-thinking individuals. We become like puppets, dancing on strings we cannot see, performing a script written by someone else. Our lives, which we believe to be the product of our own free will, are in fact shaped and directed by powerful external forces that understand our simple reflexive desires better than we do. The illusion of freedom is maintained, but the reality is one of profound servitude. We are free only to choose between the pre-approved pleasures offered to us, a choice that is no choice at all, but merely a ratification of the system's control over our emotional lives. Now prepare to confront the logical endpoint of this desire for a pain-free existence. Prepare to meet Soma, the most brilliant and perilous drug ever conceived by the literary imagination. In Aldous Huxley's Soma was a miraculous pharmaceutical panacea, a government-distributed tablet capable of dissolving any and all emotional distress without any of the messy side effects of the drugs of old. It was happiness in a bottle, a chemical shortcut to serenity. Feeling sad after a difficult day? Take a gram of Soma. Feeling anxious about a challenging task? Take 1.5 grams. Anxious, angry, jealous, or questioning the nature of your reality? There was a precise dosage of Soma for every predicament. Soma was the ultimate tool of social control, far more effective than any police force or propaganda machine. It worked by making reality optional. Whenever the world became too difficult, too unpleasant, or too demanding, citizens could simply take a Soma holiday, immersing themselves in a blissful, hallucinatory dream state for hours or even days at a time. The drug provided a perfect escape, a guaranteed refuge from the friction of life. As a result, there was no reason to confront problems, no incentive to struggle for change, and no space for discontent to fester. Why would anyone want to rebel against a system that provides a free, unlimited supply of perfect happiness on demand? The genius of Soma was that it replaced all other human coping mechanisms. There was no need for philosophy, for art, for religion, or for deep human connection when a simple pill could provide a more reliable and immediate sense of peace and purpose. It eradicated the very need for personal growth. Why develop resilience when you can simply swallow it? Why cultivate courage when you can chemically induce blissful indifference? Soma ensured that the population remained in a state of perpetual infancy, emotionally dependent on the state for their well-being, never developing the psychological maturity required to question their placid existence, or to desire anything more than the comfort it provided. This fictional drug represents the ultimate expression of the golden trap. It is pleasure perfected into a flawless instrument of enslavement. It offers the ultimate comfort, the ultimate escape, and in doing so, it demands the ultimate price: your humanity. The citizens of the world state were not unhappy slaves. They were, by their own measure, deliriously happy. But their happiness was a synthetic, hollow sham. It was a happiness devoid of meaning, depth, and truth. Soma was the final perfect seal on their gilded cage, ensuring they would never even dream of wanting to be free, because they had forgotten what freedom truly felt like. Today, in the year 2024, we may not have a singular state-issued pill branded Soma, but we are absolutely inundated with countless modern analogs that serve precisely the same function. Our world is a veritable pharmacy of Soma substitutes, each offering a different flavor of escape, a different method of numbing the sharp edges of reality. Indeed, it is highly likely that you have already consumed your daily dose of Soma today, perhaps without even realizing it. These new Somas are not always chemical, they are often digital, commercial, or behavioral. They are the readily available tools we use to manage our moods and to avoid confronting the uncomfortable silence of our own minds. The quintessential modern soma is, without a doubt, social media. Its entire architecture is designed to function as an emotional regulation device. When a person feels the gnawing pangs of loneliness, boredom, or insecurity, the immediate, almost unconscious instinct is to grasp their phone and plunge headfirst into the digital stream. There, in the endless scroll, they discover an ephemeral validation in the form of likes, comments, and shares. They find a temporary distraction in an unending parade of amusing videos, curated lifestyles, and polarizing outrage. For a few brief minutes or hours, the sharp edge of existential pain recedes, replaced by a pleasant hum of digital stimulation. Pornography represents another potent and widely used form of soma. It offers the powerful illusion of instant intimacy and pleasure, neatly bypassing all the messy complexities, vulnerabilities, and emotional demands of a real human relationship. The individual feels no compulsion to engage in the difficult work of self-discovery, to cultivate emotional maturity, or to confront their deeper fears and insecurities about connection. It provides a predictable, on-demand gratification that requires nothing in return. Yet, this artificial form of pleasure invariably leaves a hollowed-out emptiness in its wake, often exacerbating the very loneliness it purports to alleviate and making genuine connection feel even more difficult to achieve. Uncontrolled consumption and compulsive shopping also act as a powerful intoxicant, a commercial soma for the masses. The act of browsing, selecting, and acquiring new possessions provides a temporary but potent surge of well-being and a feeling of agency. For a moment, one feels important, successful, fulfilled, and momentarily happy. But this fleeting high, this retail therapy, rapidly dissipates as soon as the transaction is complete, creating an immediate and compulsive need to acquire something else to re-experience that elusive pleasure. It is a cycle of craving and temporary satisfaction that keeps a person tethered to the belief that happiness can be purchased, forever chasing a feeling that can never be truly owned. Even prescribed medications, while essential for many individuals with legitimate health concerns, can, under certain circumstances, morph into a form of soma. This happens when they are utilized primarily as a tool to escape the natural and necessary challenges of life. When pharmaceuticals are employed not to treat a diagnosed condition but simply to avoid the natural discomfort of sadness, the productive anxiety of a looming deadline, or any other emotional unease, they become a convenient means of bypassing vital personal growth. Instead of learning to navigate life's difficulties and build resilience, one simply takes a pill to smooth over the discomfort, remaining emotionally fragile and dependent on a chemical crutch. All these modern somas, from the digital to the commercial to the chemical, share a disconcerting and dangerous commonality. They all promise to alleviate pain without demanding any genuine effort, introspection, or inner transformation from the user. They offer a quick fix, a simple solution to complex human problems. It is honestly akin to applying a small, superficial band-aid to a deep and badly infected wound. The pain may be temporarily masked and the surface may look slightly better for a short time, but the underlying problem has not been addressed. In fact, it has been ignored, allowing the infection to persist, to fester, and to worsen beneath the surface, hidden from view. This approach creates a culture of avoidance. We become experts at managing symptoms rather than addressing root causes. Are you lonely? Don't examine your difficulties with intimacy, just scroll through social media. Are you unfulfilled in your career? Don't confront your fears and make a difficult change, just buy yourself something nice. Are you anxious about the state of the world? Don't engage with the complexity and find a way to contribute, just binge watch a distracting television show. Each dose of modern soma pushes the real problem further down the road, allowing it to accumulate interest like a neglected debt, ensuring that when it finally erupts, it will be far more destructive and overwhelming than it was initially. The tragedy of this is that pain, in its proper context, is not an enemy. It is a messenger. It is the body's and mind's way of telling us that something is wrong, that something requires our attention. By systematically shooting the messenger with our various forms of soma, we deny ourselves the opportunity to hear the message and to make the necessary changes to heal and to grow. We choose the temporary comfort of ignorance over the long-term transformative power of truth. We remain stuck in a cycle of superficial treatment, forever applying new band-aids while the wound beneath continues to fester, slowly poisoning our entire system. But there is an even more subtle yet profoundly disturbing phenomenon unfolding in our hyper-stimulated world: the systematic and comprehensive murder of silence. This is not merely about the absence of external quiet, the constant cacophony of traffic, notifications, and background music that forms the soundtrack to modern life. A far more unsettling and pervasive noise plagues us: the ceaseless internal chatter that never truly abates. Our minds are perpetually brimming with a chaotic swirl of thoughts, worries, plans, fantasies, and fragments of information we have consumed. This mental clamor is not a natural state, it is actively fed and amplified by our incessant, almost desperate search for external stimuli to keep the machine of the mind running at all times. The relentless external noise of the world pours directly into our internal landscape, creating a feedback loop of distraction. Every notification that buzzes on our phone, every headline we skim, every advertisement we see, adds another voice to the cacophony in our heads. We carry the anxieties of the global news cycle, the curated joys of our social media contacts, and the manufactured desires of the marketplace around with us constantly. This internal noise is exhausting, leaving us feeling mentally fragmented and spiritually drained. It prevents us from accessing a deeper layer of consciousness, a place of stillness where genuine insight and self-awareness can be found. We are so busy listening to the noise that we can no longer hear ourselves think. The most tragic part of this condition is that we have become willing accomplices in the murder of our own silence. We actively seek out noise to fill every potential void. The moment we find ourselves with a few spare minutes waiting in a line or commuting to work, our hand instinctively reaches for our phone. We put in headphones to block out the world only to replace it with a different, more curated form of noise, a podcast, an audiobook, or a music playlist. We have been conditioned to believe that an unoccupied mind is a wasted mind, that every moment must be filled with productivity or entertainment. We have forgotten that emptiness is not a void to be feared, but a space to be explored. This tyranny of internal noise serves the system of control perfectly. A mind that is constantly chattering is a mind that cannot engage in deep, critical reflection. It is too distracted to question the assumptions it lives by, too fragmented to connect the dots of a larger political or social reality, and too agitated to find peace. The system does not need to censor dissenting thoughts, it simply needs to ensure that the mental environment is too noisy for them to ever arise in the first place. By murdering silence, both external and internal, it ensures that we remain in a state of superficial awareness, forever skimming the surface of life, never daring to plunge into the quiet depths where real truth resides. When was the last time you experienced a moment of genuine, complete, and unadulterated silence? Not just the absence of sound, but the quieting of the internal monologue. For most of us, such moments are exceedingly rare, and when they do occur, they can feel deeply uncomfortable, even frightening. This discomfort is a profound diagnostic tool. It reveals the depth of our addiction to external stimuli and our alienation from our own inner selves. The prospect of simply sitting in a quiet room, of being and doing absolutely nothing, can become a form of profound torture for the modern mind. We have lost the innate capacity to discover peace and joy within our own inner landscape, so we must constantly seek it from outside sources. This unbearable discomfort of being is the engine that drives so much of our compulsive behavior. It is the anxiety that fuels the endless scrolling, the boredom that launches the next binge watch, the loneliness that prompts the frantic search for social distraction. We are running from the silence because we are afraid of what we might find there. We might find difficult emotions we have been suppressing, uncomfortable truths about our lives we have been avoiding, or existential questions we have no easy answers for. The constant stream of pleasure and entertainment functions as a sophisticated avoidance strategy, a way to keep ourselves so busy and distracted that we never have to face the person who is waiting for us in the quiet, ourselves. Mystics and philosophers from every spiritual tradition throughout history have invariably linked silence with profound self-knowledge and wisdom. They understood a fundamental truth that our society has forgotten. True introspection is impossible amidst mental chaos. It is like trying to see your reflection in the surface of a lake while a storm is raging. Only when the winds die down and the water becomes perfectly still can a clear image emerge. Silence is the fertile ground where the seeds of the most profound transformations take root. It is within that stillness that we can finally begin to discern our authentic voice from the chorus of conditioned voices in our heads, the voice that knows our true needs, our deepest values, and our highest aspirations. Socrates famously declared that an unexamined life is not worth living. But how can we possibly engage in the rigorous and honest work of self-examination if our minds never pause for breath? How can we cultivate deep contemplative thought if we are perpetually consuming prepackaged information and entertainment created by others? The death of silence is therefore the death of philosophy in our personal lives. We outsource our thinking, our feeling, and even our sense of self to the external world. We become hollow receptacles for the noise of the culture, rather than sovereign individuals capable of generating our own meaning and purpose from the quiet sanctuary of our own being. This dependency on external distraction and the inability to tolerate discomfort leads us to perhaps the most concerning phenomenon of all: the wholesale transformation of adults into big children. One of Aldous Huxley's most searing and honestly prophetic criticisms in Brave New World centered on the pervasive and deliberate infantilization of society. He observed a world where adults were systematically treated and consequently began to behave like overgrown children. They were portrayed as being fundamentally incapable of making mature decisions, delaying gratification, or grappling with the inevitable frustrations and complexities of life. This infantilization, Huxley warned, is not merely an unfortunate side effect of a pleasure-seeking culture. It is in fact a highly effective and intentional control strategy. Children are, by their nature, easily controlled. Their behavior is primarily driven by the pleasure principle, the immediate gratification of their desires, and the swift avoidance of any discomfort. Offer a child a piece of candy every time they begin to cry, and they will quickly learn that crying is the most direct and effective path to getting what they want. They do not develop more mature coping mechanisms because, well, they do not need to. Modern society employs this identical strategy with its adult population on a massive scale. It offers an endless supply of digital candy, immediate satisfactions, easy distractions, and simple pleasures, to preempt any potential crying, complaining, or most importantly, rebellion. An infantilized adult is the ideal subject for a control system. They lack the emotional resilience to challenge authority, or to endure the hardships that often accompany the fight for meaningful change. They are more concerned with their personal comfort and entertainment than with abstract principles like justice, freedom, or truth. Their political engagement is often reduced to the level of a childish tantrum, expressing outrage on social media without any intention of taking real-world action. They want the world's problems to be solved for them, with as little personal inconvenience as possible. They are, in essence, waiting for a parental authority figure to step in and make everything better so they can get back to their games. This strategy works by fundamentally redefining what it means to be an adult. Adulthood, traditionally, was associated with responsibility, self-discipline, and the ability to put the needs of the community or family before one's own immediate desires. The new infantilized version of adulthood is simply an extension of adolescence, a continued pursuit of personal happiness, freedom from responsibility, and the expectation that the world should conform to one's own comfort. By promoting this new ideal, the system creates a population of dependents who are psychologically unequipped for the burdens of true freedom, making them far more willing to trade it away for security and comfort. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, with his own brand of chilling foresight, spoke of a figure he called the last man. This was his vision of the end point of Western civilization, a rather pathetic and honestly contemptible creature who desires nothing more than security, comfort, and a long, untroubled life. The last man meticulously avoids any form of risk, any great challenge, any passion, or anything that might disrupt their carefully constructed bubble of personal peace and petty pleasures. They unequivocally prefer a small, safe, and predictable life to a grand, ambitious, and potentially dangerous one. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. This blinking, contented creature is the perfect embodiment of the infantilized adult. This infantilization manifests most clearly in the profound and widespread inability to tolerate frustration. We see it everywhere, in the small daily tantrums of the modern adult. If the Wi-Fi connection falters for a mere moment during a crucial streaming event, a surge of genuine disproportionate irritation flares up. If a wait of more than a few minutes is required in a line at a coffee shop, a palpable sense of despair and injustice sets in. If someone expresses a dissenting or challenging opinion on social media, it is not met with debate but with deep personal offense and calls for that person to be silenced. It is as if every minor discomfort, every small friction against our will, is perceived as a cataclysmic tragedy. This hypersensitivity to frustration is a direct result of being conditioned to expect constant and immediate rewards. Our technological environment has trained us to believe that we should have what we want, the moment we want it. We can summon food, transportation, and entertainment with the tap of a finger. This has drastically lowered our collective frustration tolerance. We have not been given the opportunity to build the psychological muscle of patience, the quiet strength that comes from having to wait, to endure boredom, or to work through a problem without an instant solution. Like a spoiled child who has never been told no, we have not developed the emotional maturity to handle the simple, unavoidable realities of a world that does not always bend to our immediate desires. This inability to delay gratification has profound political consequences. It makes us susceptible to the simplistic, emotionally charged rhetoric of demagogues who promise easy solutions to complex problems. It makes us impatient with the slow, messy, and often frustrating processes of democratic debate and compromise. We want a quick fix, a strong leader who will just make the problems go away. The last man's tantrum is not just a personal failing, it is a political vulnerability. A populace that cannot endure minor frustrations is a populace that can be easily manipulated by those who promise to soothe their every irritation, often at the cost of their long-term freedom and well-being. Ultimately, the culture of infantilization is a culture that actively rejects the very notion of maturity. Maturity is not simply a matter of chronological age, it is a psychological and spiritual achievement. It involves the conscious acceptance of complexity, ambiguity, and responsibility. A mature individual understands that life is not a simple story of heroes and villains, that difficult choices often involve painful trade-offs, and that true fulfillment comes not from the avoidance of suffering but from finding meaning within it. They are capable of holding opposing ideas in their mind without collapsing into confusion, and they can act with purpose even in the face of uncertainty. This entire way of being is antithetical to the infantilized mindset. The infantilized adult, having been conditioned by a lifetime of constant and immediate rewards, rarely questions authority in any meaningful way. It is far easier and more comfortable to simply accept the narratives provided by the system, especially when those narratives are entertaining and emotionally satisfying. It is the modern equivalent of offering a child a lollipop to distract them from asking difficult or inconvenient questions like why. While we, the adult children, remain absorbed in our digital lollipops, our endless entertainment, our compulsive consumption, our myriad superficial pleasures, we remain utterly oblivious to the significant and often troubling events unfolding around us. We are too busy playing to pay attention to the world of adult concerns. This rejection of maturity leads to a profound abdication of personal and civic duty. We become passive spectators of our own lives and our own societies, waiting for someone else to take the lead. We may complain about the state of the world, but we feel powerless and unmotivated to do the hard, unglamorous work required to change it. The infantilized mind seeks a hero to solve its problems, a parental figure to take responsibility. This creates a dangerous power vacuum that can be easily filled by authoritarian figures who are more than happy to treat the populace like children, making their decisions for them in exchange for their compliance and adoration. To reclaim our adulthood is, therefore, a radical act of rebellion. It means consciously choosing the path of maturity over the easy road of perpetual childhood. It means learning to tolerate frustration, to delay gratification, and to find satisfaction in responsibility rather than just in recreation. It means turning off the distractions and learning to sit with the discomfort of silence. It involves engaging with complexity, embracing nuance, and accepting that there are no easy answers. It is the difficult but essential work of growing up, of trading the gilded cage of infantile comfort for the challenging, unpredictable, and ultimately, more meaningful freedom of being a true adult in a complex world. But perhaps, amidst this stark and unsettling assessment of our modern condition, you are left with a single burning and essential question: is there a way out? Is there an escape hatch from this comfortable golden trap? The answer is yes, but it may not be the answer you expect, and the path it reveals is far from easy. It begins with a profound and often jarring realization, a truth articulated by Huxley himself. Truth is not always comfortable. In fact, if we are being truly honest with ourselves, we must admit that the deepest truths about ourselves and our world are almost never comfortable. They challenge our assumptions, disrupt our peace, and demand that we change. Truth requires that we confront facets of ourselves and the world that our natural instincts would much rather avoid. It asks us to look at our own complicity, our own laziness, our own fears. It demands that we acknowledge the suffering that exists beyond our bubble of personal comfort. This fundamental human aversion to discomfort explains, with painful clarity, why the vast majority of people consistently opt to dwell within the warm, soothing embrace of illusion. Illusion is easy, truth is hard. Illusion offers simple answers. Truth presents us with complex, often unanswerable questions. Choosing truth over comfort is the first, most critical and most difficult step toward freedom. Illusion functions like a soft, insulating blanket, shielding us from the bracing, unpredictable chill of reality. It is comfortable, it is warm, it is intimately familiar, and it feels safe. Truth, conversely, is akin to stepping out of a warm, cozy home on a frigid winter morning. The initial shock of the cold air can be unpleasant, perhaps even painful, but it is also invigorating. It wakes you up. And it is utterly necessary if you are to embark on any meaningful journey and reach any worthwhile destination. The pervasive and tragic problem of our time is that too many of us have chosen to remain perpetually tucked beneath the covers, mistaking the warmth of the blanket for the light of the sun. To begin climbing out of the trap, we must start by cultivating a taste for the uncomfortable. We must learn to welcome the friction that truth creates. This means actively seeking out perspectives that challenge our own, reading books that make us think, and having conversations that are difficult. It means choosing to face a painful reality in our own lives rather than papering over it with another distraction. We must lean into the discomfort, recognizing it not as a threat, but as a signpost. It is a signal that we are moving in the right direction, away from the narcotizing comfort of the cage and towards the difficult, demanding, but ultimately liberating air of the real world. The ever-present dilemma between the real and the pleasurable unfolds every single day in countless small and monumental decisions that we make. The choice is not always dramatic. Often it is quiet, subtle, and intensely personal. It is undoubtedly more pleasurable in the short term to believe that the world is free of significant problems than it is to confront the harsh realities of poverty, widespread injustice, or the escalating destruction of our natural environment. It is far more comfortable to passively assume that these massive issues will somehow resolve themselves than it is to embrace our own personal responsibility to be part of the necessary difficult changes. Every time we choose to look away, we are choosing pleasure over truth. This choice extends deeply into our private lives, where the stakes feel even more personal. It is so much simpler to maintain the cozy pretense that everything is fine than it is to acknowledge the deep-seated, painful issues that may exist within our most important relationships, our careers, or our own mental and emotional well-being. Denial, in this sense, is a powerful form of pleasure. It is a temporary anesthetic that allows us to avoid the sharp discomfort of confrontation. However, this carefully avoided pain does not simply vanish into thin air. It accumulates, festering beneath the calm surface, until it inevitably erupts in a far more chaotic and destructive manner down the line. The choice between truth and pleasure is, therefore, not merely a psychological preference. It is, at its very core, an ethical choice. It is a decision that has consequences that ripple out far beyond our own personal comfort. When we consistently choose the comforting embrace of illusion, we are not merely harming ourselves by stunting our own growth. We are also actively contributing to a culture and a world where falsehoods are prioritized over honesty, where superficial appearances hold greater sway than fundamental substance, and where willful ignorance is seen as a viable, even respectable, way of life. Our personal choice to live in reality becomes a vote for reality itself. To make the ethical choice for truth requires a specific kind of courage. It is not the flashy courage of a soldier on a battlefield, but the quiet internal courage to be honest with oneself. It is the courage to admit when you are wrong, to apologize when you have caused harm, and to face the consequences of your actions. It is the courage to have the difficult conversation, to end the relationship that is no longer healthy, or to leave the job that is crushing your spirit. Each one of these acts is a powerful blow against the walls of the golden prison, a declaration that you value the integrity of your own soul more than the fleeting comfort of a pleasant lie. This profound realization about truth and illusion leads us to a disturbing insight concerning our own physicality, our very relationship with our bodies. For millennia, across countless diverse cultures and spiritual traditions, the human body was revered as something sacred. It was seen as the temple of the soul, the indispensable and miraculous vehicle for deep spiritual experience and a microcosm of the entire universe. The body was something to be cared for, disciplined and respected, not as an end in itself, but as a precious instrument through which one could connect to something grander, something transcendent. This sacred view provided a deep sense of meaning and purpose to our physical existence. Yet, in our modern, secular, and consumer-driven society, the body has been largely stripped of this sacred dimension. It has been demoted and reduced to an object of rampant hedonistic worship. It is no longer seen as a conduit to a higher reality, but has instead become the ultimate, self-contained destination for all our striving. The goal is no longer to use the body to transcend the self, but to perfect the body to glorify the self. This inversion of the sacred is exceedingly dangerous. We obsess over its appearance, its fitness, its capacity for pleasure, turning it into a project of endless, anxious self-improvement, a source of both pride and profound insecurity. When the body is treated solely as a source of immediate gratification and a canvas for aesthetic perfection, it transforms into a personal prison of the most intimate kind. We become hopelessly trapped by our physical desires, our appetites, our aches, and our appearance, utterly unable to perceive anything beyond the fleeting needs and anxieties of the present moment. We are caught in a relentless cycle of feeding it, grooming it, exercising it, and medicating it. It is akin to residing in a magnificent, beautiful house, but spending all of your days obsessively polishing the floors and cleaning the windows, never daring to venture outside to explore the vast mysterious world that lies just beyond the front door. To escape this fleshly prison, we must begin to reclaim a more sacred view of our own bodies. This does not mean rejecting physical pleasure or neglecting our health. It means recontextualizing them. It means seeing the body not as the master, but as the servant of a higher purpose. It means cultivating a relationship with our physicality that is based on respect rather than obsession, and on gratitude rather than judgment. It means understanding that the body is a temporary and precious gift, an amazing instrument that, when properly tuned and cared for, can allow us to experience the world, to connect with others, and to contribute something of value during our short time here. This hedonistic worship of the body and its desires leads us directly into the path of a powerful philosophical insight, articulated with stark clarity by the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer. He famously and grimly asserted that desire, by its very nature, is an inherent and unavoidable source of suffering. This is not a complex idea, but a simple, observable truth of the human condition. When we crave something, be it an object, an experience, or a person, we suffer because we lack it. This state of wanting creates a tension, an ache of incompleteness within us. Our present moment becomes devalued, seen only as an obstacle to be overcome on the way to future satisfaction. Then when we finally struggle and succeed in acquiring what we so deeply desired, the suffering does not end. For a brief moment we might experience relief or pleasure, but this is quickly replaced by a new form of suffering. Another desire, often more potent than the last, invariably surfaces to take the place of the one just fulfilled. The new phone is exciting for a day, until we see the advertisement for the next, even better model. Or, perhaps worse, we are afflicted by the suffering of boredom, the hollow anticlimax of discovering that the thing we wanted so badly did not in fact make us permanently happy. The cycle begins anew, a relentless treadmill of striving and dissatisfaction. And finally, when we inevitably lose what we once possessed, as we must with all things in this impermanent world, we suffer yet again, this time from the pain of loss. This is the cruel, three-act tragedy of desire that Schopenhauer described. The suffering of longing, the suffering of boredom, and the suffering of loss. It is an unrelenting, endless cycle of dissatisfaction from which there is no escape, as long as we remain slaves to our own wanting. The golden trap is not just a societal construct, it is built into the very mechanics of unexamined desire. The more we chase pleasure, the more we guarantee our own perpetual state of unease. To break this cycle is not to annihilate desire, which would be impossible, but to change our relationship to it. It requires the cultivation of a state of mind that can observe the arising and passing of desires, without being automatically swept away by them. It is the practice of finding a sense of contentment in the present moment, exactly as it is, rather than constantly seeking happiness in a future that has not yet arrived. This is the practice of mindfulness, of presence, of gratitude. It is the radical act of stepping off the hamster wheel, even for a few moments each day, to simply breathe and to recognize that in this moment, we have enough and we are enough. However, it is absolutely crucial to understand that not all pleasure is the enemy. To declare a blanket war on pleasure would be a grim and joyless path, and it would be to miss a vital and surprising discovery. There is a fundamental, world-altering distinction between pleasure that enslaves and pleasure that liberates. Conscious pleasure, the liberating kind, springs from a place of deep presence, from authentic connection with the world and with others, and from a profound, non-possessive appreciation for the simple, inherent beauty of life. This type of pleasure does not create addiction or dependency because it makes no false promises of being anything more than what it is, a fleeting, beautiful moment to be savored. Consider the vast difference between two kinds of pleasure. The pleasure derived from sitting quietly and contemplating a breathtaking sunset is fundamentally different from the pleasure of passively watching a loud, formulaic action movie on television. The first kind of pleasure connects us to something grander than our small, egoic selves. It fosters a sense of awe and wonder. The second kind of pleasure effectively disconnects us from reality, lulling us into a state of passive consumption. The first leaves us feeling more awake, more alive, and more grateful. The second often leaves us feeling more numb, more drained, and more restless. The first nourishes the soul, the second merely distracts the mind for a while. The pleasure of authentic human connection is also profoundly liberating. When two individuals genuinely connect with one another, engaging in deep and honest conversations, sharing their vulnerabilities, or collaborating on a creative project, a unique and powerful form of joy emerges. This joy is entirely independent of external stimuli or material consumption. It is a pleasure born from the profound human capacity to love, to understand, and to be understood. Similarly, the pleasure of artistic creation, the deep focus and flow state that comes from writing, painting, playing music, or building something with your hands, is a source of conscious pleasure that enhances our humanity rather than diminishing it. The revolutionary act, then, is not to renounce pleasure but to become a connoisseur of it. It is to consciously choose the pleasures that awaken us over the pleasures that put us to sleep. This requires mindfulness and discernment. It requires asking ourselves, how does this activity make me feel afterwards? Does it leave me more connected or more isolated, more energized or more depleted, more at peace or more anxious? By actively cultivating a life rich in conscious liberating pleasures, we begin to starve the addiction to the shallow enslaving ones. We gradually lose our taste for the synthetic soma, because we have discovered something infinitely more satisfying, the simple, profound, and authentic joy of being fully and consciously alive. We stand therefore at a profound and urgent crossroads, a defining intersection between two vastly different paths for humanity. One path leads deeper into the golden trap, a future Huxley foresaw with such haunting clarity. It is a world of effortless comfort, endless entertainment, and chemically induced contentment, a society of infantilized adults who have willingly traded their freedom for the security of a well-appointed cage. This path is smooth, inviting, and brightly lit, promising the complete eradication of pain and the perpetual satisfaction of every superficial desire. It is the path of the last man, a descent into a comfortable, predictable, and ultimately meaningless existence, a living death disguised as a perfect life where the soul quietly atrophies from a lack of challenge. The other path is the climb. It is the arduous, often uncomfortable, and profoundly revolutionary journey of resistance against this tide of engineered pleasure. This is the path of choosing truth over comfort, reality over illusion, and depth over superficiality. It is the path of reclaiming our silence from the tyranny of noise, of cultivating emotional maturity in a culture that champions perpetual childhood, and of seeking conscious, liberating pleasures over the addictive, enslaving ones. This path requires courage, discipline, and a willingness to confront the difficult aspects of ourselves and our world. It promises not constant happiness, but the possibility of genuine, hard-won meaning, a fulfillment that cannot be purchased or consumed, but only earned through the difficult work of becoming fully human. The choice between the cage and the climb is not a single, grand decision made once in a lifetime. It is a choice that confronts us every single day, in 1,000 small moments. It is in the decision to put down the phone and have a real conversation, to turn off the television and sit with our own thoughts, to question a comforting narrative, or to choose the difficult right over the easy wrong. Every time we consciously choose a discomfort that leads to growth, we cast a vote for freedom. Every time we embrace a moment of authentic connection or creative expression, we weaken the bars of our own prison. The revolution is not fought in the streets with weapons, but in the quiet, sovereign territory of our own consciousness. Ultimately, the golden trap is only a trap if we fail to see it. Its power lies in its invisibility. in its masterful disguise as liberation and progress. By simply understanding the mechanisms of control, the engineering of desire, the weaponization of pleasure, the murder of silence, we begin to rob the system of its power over us. The journey out begins with this awareness. It is a call to awaken from our comfortable slumber, to reject the synthetic soma offered to us at every turn, and to begin the challenging, uncertain but glorious climb towards a life of authentic purpose, genuine connection, and true, unshakable freedom. The cage door is unlocked, the choice to step out is, and has always been, our own. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more hidden in plain sight truths.